Every workplace has one. The silent saboteur. The employee who nods but never listens. Who shows up but never contributes. Who lives on excuses like oxygen. And here's the chilling truth. It's not just about them. It's about you. Because every excuse you tolerate, every act of laziness you allow, sends a message to your entire team. That weakness survives here. But what if I told you, there's a way to stop it? Not with shouting. Not with endless reminders. With something far more powerful. This is not just about managing employees. This is about mastering authority. About understanding human nature itself. If you've ever felt disrespected, ignored, or drained by someone's laziness, watch closely. Because what you're about to hear will change how you lead forever. There is a type of employee every manager dreads. Not the one who argues. Not the one who pushes back with new ideas. No, those can be sharpened, molded, even turned into weapons of innovation. The one you dread most is the silent saboteur. The one who sits in the chair but is never really there. The one who nods when you speak but never listens. The one who agrees in meetings and disappears in action. Lazy. Always dodging responsibility like a shadow slipping through cracks. Have you met them? The employee who arrives late, then tells you traffic was worse than usual. The one who misses deadlines, then tells you they misunderstood the task. The one who doesn't put in effort, but always has a reason. Family problem, technical glitch, stress, bad day, stomachache. Always something. Always a shield made of excuses. At first, you might pity them. You tell yourself, maybe they're struggling. Maybe they'll grow. But pity turns to frustration. Frustration turns to contempt. Because you realize they are not helpless. They are hiding. And here's the truth. Excuses are not mistakes. Excuses are weapons. Every excuse is an act of rebellion. Not loud rebellion. Quiet rebellion. It is the art of saying, I refuse to give you my best. And I dare you to do something about it. You see, laziness in the workplace is not just about lost productivity. It is psychological warfare. It is the employee testing your boundaries. Watching if you will enforce standards or let them slip. Because every time you let one excuse pass, every time you let one deadline slide, every time you let one lazy moment slide without consequence, you send a message. And the message is this. Mediocrity is allowed here. Weakness is tolerated here. Excuses can survive here. And once that message is sent, others hear it too. One employee's laziness infects the team like mold. Suddenly, the ones who used to work hard begin to ask, why should I? Suddenly, the culture shifts. From excellence to tolerance. From accountability to apathy. A single unruly employee can bring down an entire department. Like one rotten apple poisoning the barrel. Like one broken wheel slowing down the whole machine. But the real danger is not them. The real danger is you, the manager, who does nothing. Because if you do nothing, you are no longer leading. You are surrendering. So the question becomes, what will you do when faced with the silent saboteur? Do you let them eat away at your authority? Do you accept their excuses as truth? Or do you see them for what they are? A test of your strength, your clarity, your ability to lead. Because in the end, the problem is not the lazy employee. The problem is the leader who allows laziness to thrive. Excuses are not harmless. Excuses are poison. They are the softest chains, the quietest prisons. The invisible ropes that tie down both the weak employee and the leader who tolerates them. Ask yourself, what is an excuse? It is not the truth. It is not action. It is a story. A convenient narrative crafted to protect the ego from responsibility. It is a shield against accountability, a mask to cover laziness, a fog to blur failure. Excuses always sound reasonable. That is their power. I was late because of traffic. Reasonable. I didn't finish because I didn't understand. Reasonable. I couldn't do it because something came up. Reasonable. Reasonable on the surface. Rotten at the core. Because, here is the truth, Excuses are rehearsed lies. Even if they contain fragments of truth, their function is always the same: avoid accountability. Have you noticed? Excuse makers are never solution. They don't come to you saying, "This problem happened, here's how I fixed it." No. They come empty-handed, with reasons, with stories, with sighs, with drama. Excuses are their currency. Action is their enemy. And you, as the manager, must recognize this language for what it is: weakness disguised as explanation. Think about your own life. The gym you didn't go to, what was your excuse? The project you didn't start, what was your excuse? The call you didn't make, the opportunity you didn't take, what excuse did you tell yourself? And did that excuse help you? Or did it rob you? Excuses rob potential. They rob time. They rob growth. In the workplace, they rob trust. Because when an employee gives excuses, what they are really saying is, "I cannot be relied upon. I cannot be counted on." Trust is the currency of leadership. And every excuse spends it. History shows us this truth. The generals who lost wars did not all lose because of stronger enemies. Many lost because their men were full of excuses. The athletes who fall short of greatness rarely lose to talent. They lose to their own excuses. Even civilizations crumble not only because of external forces, but because of internal weakness, decay fed by excuses. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, warned against it. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Excuses are the denial of that power. They shift blame from the self to the world, from the controllable to the uncontrollable. And once that mindset spreads, your organization becomes fragile. A team built on excuses is a team waiting to collapse. So, what must you do? You must learn to see excuses, not as explanations, but as signals. A signal of weakness. A signal of resistance. A signal that your authority is being tested. And here is the revelation. When you hear an excuse, do not debate it. Do not argue with it. You cut through it. You redirect to action. Because if you give energy to the excuse, you validate it. If you validate it, you empower it. The strong leader does not live in the world of excuses. The strong leader lives in the world of outcomes. Silence is often the best response to excuses. Silence paired with expectation. Silence paired with consequence. Because in leadership, as in life, excuses are the language of the weak. And weakness is not to be coddled. It is to be confronted. People think laziness is simple. They see a person slouched at their desk, scrolling their phone, moving slow, dragging feet, and they say, "Ah, laziness." A lack of energy. A lack of motivation. A flaw in character. But laziness is not simple. Laziness is not always what it appears to be. Laziness is often a mask. Behind laziness hides fear. Behind laziness hides resentment. Behind laziness hides defiance. Have you noticed? The lazy employee is rarely confused. They are rarely incapable. They are rarely unintelligent. No. They know exactly what they are doing. They are withholding effort. Why? Because effort is currency, and withholding it is power. Think of a teenager refusing to clean their room. Is it really about dust and clothes on the floor? Or is it about control? About testing the parent's authority? About proving, "I don't have to do what you say"? The same dynamic plays out in the workplace. The lazy employee is not just tired. They are declaring war, quiet war. Their laziness says, "I will not give you my energy. I will not give you my focus." And what can you do about it? It is passive resistance, the weapon of the powerless. And the mask of laziness has many forms. Sometimes it hides insecurity. If I try hard and fail, I will be exposed. Better to not try at all. Sometimes it hides entitlement. I deserve the paycheck without the sweat. Sometimes it hides hostility. I don't respect you enough to give you my best. Which one is it, in your employee? That is for you to uncover. But make no mistake, behind the mask, There is always something deeper than simple sloth. Psychologists know this well. Laziness is often a cover for avoidance. Avoidance of pain, avoidance of growth, avoidance of confrontation. It is the illusion of comfort, the illusion of safety. But here is the truth. Laziness is never neutral. It is active decay. It corrodes the soul of the individual, and it corrodes the spirit of the team. Think of a soldier in an army who decides to slack off during battle drills. His laziness doesn't just weaken him. It weakens the entire unit. It puts lives at risk. Think of a player on a basketball team who refuses to hustle back on defense. His laziness doesn't just cost him, it costs the team points. It costs the game. Think of a partner in a relationship who refuses to put in effort. Their laziness doesn't just create boredom, it breeds resentment. Workplace laziness is no different. One person's mask becomes everyone's burden. And here's where the philosophy comes in. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us about those who hide their weakness behind masks. He said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask. But not all masks are born of wisdom. Some masks are born of cowardice. Some masks are born of spite." The lazy employee wears such a mask. They pretend to be powerless. They pretend to be exhausted. They pretend to be confused. But in reality, it is a choice. A deliberate performance. And every performance has an audience. The question is, will you, the manager, clap for their act? Or will you rip off the mask and reveal what lies beneath? Because here is the danger. When laziness goes unchallenged, the mask becomes permanent. The actor forgets they are acting. The excuse becomes the identity. I am just not a hard worker. I am just not motivated. I am just like this. No. No one is just like this. Laziness is not identity. Laziness is strategy. Strategy to avoid effort, avoid accountability, avoid growth. And when you understand that, when you see laziness as a mask, you stop being fooled. You stop treating it as a sickness. You start treating it as a choice. And choices have consequences. A single seed can grow a forest. A single spark can start a wildfire. And a single rotten seed can infect the soil, poison the roots, and kill the tree. In the workplace, that rotten seed is the lazy, excuse-making employee. You may think it's just one person. The rest of the team is strong. But strength is fragile when infection spreads. Have you ever watched how apathy travels? It starts slow, invisible, like a shadow creeping across the floor. One person cuts corners, and nothing happens. Another notices. They ask themselves, why am I working so hard when he isn't? And then they, too, cut corners. Now 2 people are infected. Now the culture begins to bend. Soon, the message is clear. Excellence is optional. Commitment is optional. Discipline is optional. And once standards become optional, chaos is inevitable. Look at history. Armies have fallen because one coward turned his back, and others followed. Companies have collapsed because one leader tolerated mediocrity, and it spread like a plague. Even families have broken because one member decided effort was too heavy a burden. Think of it in your own life. Have you ever been part of a team project at school where one person didn't do their share? What happened? The frustration spread. Resentment spread. Soon the whole project was poisoned, not just by the lazy one, but by the anger, the bitterness, the lack of trust among the others. Or in a family, when one sibling constantly shirks responsibility, who picks up the slack? The others. And what does it breed? Resentment, division, distance. This is the ripple effect. It is not just about one employee being lazy. It is about how their laziness multiplies. Because here's the dark truth. Mediocrity is contagious. It spreads faster than excellence. Why? Because it appeals to the weakest part of human nature, the desire for comfort, the desire for ease, the desire to get something for nothing. Excellence requires effort. Discipline requires sacrifice. But laziness whispers to everyone, why bother? Why struggle? Look, he is doing less and still getting paid. And once that thought enters a workplace, you have a cultural virus on your hands. This is why leaders must act decisively. This is why managers must be ruthless in protecting the standard. Not because of one employee, but because of the shadow they cast. In philosophy, Aristotle warned us. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. When the lazy employee is treated the same as the hard-working one when they receive the same paycheck, the same recognition, the same tolerance, you create inequality. You create injustice. And injustice breeds rebellion. The strong worker begins to feel like a fool. The silent resentment begins to boil. And soon, your best people leave. Who remains? The lazy ones. The infected. That is the ripple effect of one rotten seed. It is not just about one. It is about all. And so the question for you, the leader, is simple. Do you allow the rotten seed to remain in your soil? Or do you cut it out before it poisons the roots? Because leadership is not gardening for beauty. It is gardening for survival. Every time you point a finger outward, remember 3 fingers point back at you. Yes, the lazy, excuse-making employee is a problem. But here is the harder truth. They are also a reflection. A reflection of leadership. A mirror held up to the manager. Because weak employees do not survive in strong systems. They survive in weak ones. They do not thrive under strong leaders. They thrive under tolerant ones. Ask yourself, why is this person still in your team? Why are they still employed, still paid, still present? The answer is uncomfortable. They are still here because you allowed them to be. Leadership is not just about vision and strategy. It is about standards. Standards are the invisible walls that shape behavior. Standards say, this is what is acceptable here. And anything less will not survive. When standards are weak, excuses multiply. When standards are enforced, excuses die. So the presence of the unruly employee is not just their fault. It is your responsibility. Consider the parent who lets a child misbehave without consequence. The child learns, I can get away with it. Who is at fault? The child. Or the parent who allowed the behavior to harden into habit. Consider the coach who lets a star player skip practice. The player learns, I am above the rules. Who is at fault? The player. Or the coach who betrayed the team's standard. Consider the nation that tolerates corruption. The corrupt multiply. Who is at fault? The people. Or the leaders who failed to enforce justice. The mirror always reflects back. And here is the brutal revelation. When you, the manager, complain about lazy employees, you are indirectly confessing your own weakness. You are confessing that you failed to set boundaries. You are confessing that you failed to enforce consequences. You are confessing that you failed to lead. Because leadership is not about what you preach. It is about what you permit. You can give motivational speeches. You can write policies. You can send emails. But if the lazy one can still show up late, still dodge responsibility, still drown you in excuses without consequence, your words mean nothing. Nietzsche once said, you have your way. I have my way. As for the right way, it does not exist. But in leadership, there is only one way. The way of standards. Without them, there is no authority. Without authority, there is no respect. Without respect, there is no leadership. Think about your own life. The teachers you respected most were not the ones who let you do anything you wanted. They were the ones who drew clear lines. Who demanded your best. Who punished laziness, but rewarded effort. The bosses who shaped you were not the lenient ones. They were the ones who held you to fire. Who refused your excuses. Who taught you that discipline is freedom. So, look in the mirror. If laziness surrounds you, you must ask, what standards did I fail to set? What boundaries did I fail to defend? What weakness in me allowed weakness in them? The unruly employee is not just a challenge. They are a test. A test of whether you are willing to step into your authority or surrender it. Because leadership is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself, your tolerance, your silence, your boundaries, your actions. And if you cannot control yourself, you will never control them. A manager's greatest mistake is thinking control comes from louder words, longer lectures, or endless reminders. No, control does not come from noise. Control comes from boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that shut people out. They are shields that protect the standard. Without boundaries, you are naked in battle. Every excuse pierces you. Every act of laziness cuts you. Every challenge drains you. But with boundaries clear, unshakable, enforced, you are untouchable. What is a boundary? It is not a rule written in an employee handbook. It is not a policy buried in HR files. A boundary is a living line. A line that says, here is what I tolerate. Here is what I do not. And the power of a boundary is not in saying it. It is in enforcing it. Think of a dog owner who says, don't jump on the couch, but laughs when the dog does. What happens? The dog ignores the words, because the boundary was never enforced. Think of a parent who says, bedtime is at 9, but allows the child to stay up until midnight. What happens? The boundary collapses. Words without consequence are not boundaries. They are noise. So, as a manager, your shield is consequence. The late employee gets the late mark. The missed deadline gets the performance warning. The repeated laziness gets the escalation. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. Out of principle. Because when you enforce boundaries, you protect the culture. And then there is silence. Silence, the most underestimated weapon of leadership. Why is silence powerful? Because excuses feed on attention. Excuses are parasites that need energy, debate, sympathy. When you argue with an excuse, you strengthen it. When you justify it, you validate it. But when you meet an excuse with silence, silence paired with expectation, suddenly the excuse maker has nothing to hold on to. Picture this. An employee says, I couldn't finish because the system was slow. The weak manager argues. Debates. But others finished. But IT said the system was fine. And suddenly, the excuse lives. The debate gives it oxygen. Now picture the strong manager. The employee gives the excuse. The manager says nothing. Just silence. Then, calmly, the work still needs to be done. By tomorrow. No argument. No wasted energy. Just expectation. Just consequence. The excuse dies in the air. Silence is uncomfortable. But discomfort is what breaks the excuse maker's power. They want to drag you into their drama. Your silence denies them the stage. This is why boundaries are shields, and silence is a weapon. One protects you. The other disarms them. Real leaders do not waste energy in battles of words. They conserve their strength. They set boundaries once. They enforce them consistently. They use silence to kill excuses. And the result? Respect. Authority. Order. Because when employees realize your boundaries cannot be broken, and your silence cannot be manipulated, they stop testing you. They start respecting you. And respect is the soil where performance grows. Authority without consequence is an illusion. It looks like power. It sounds like power. But when tested, it collapses. You can give speeches. You can set rules. You can demand respect. But if breaking the rule costs nothing, the rule is worthless. If missing the deadline changes nothing, the deadline is fiction. If laziness carries no weight, laziness becomes law. This is the harsh reality. Human beings respond not to what is said, but to what is enforced. Think of a red traffic light. Why do people stop? Because they respect the philosophy of order, because they love the government. No. They stop because there is consequence: tickets, fines, accidents, death. Without consequence, the red light becomes decoration. The workplace is no different. As a manager, you must master the discipline of consequences. Not out of cruelty, out of justice, out of survival. Here's how it works. 1. Immediate consequence for small failures. A missed deadline without notice. Address it immediately. Not next week. Not during annual review. Now. A simple, direct response. You committed to this. You did not deliver. This is unacceptable. No anger. No lecture. Just clarity. The boundary was crossed. The consequence is delivered. 2. Escalating consequence for repeated patterns. If the excuse maker repeats the behavior, the consequence must escalate. Verbal warning becomes written warning. Written warning becomes HR escalation. HR escalation becomes termination. Not because you want to fire them, but because you refuse to let poison spread. 3. Visible consequence for cultural impact. Consequences must not only be felt by the offender. They must be seen by the team. When the lazy one faces accountability, the rest of the team learns. This is a place of standards. This is a place where effort matters. Nothing kills excuses faster than watching someone else suffer the cost of them. 4. Consistent consequence without favoritism. If one person is punished and another is spared for the same offense, you destroy your credibility. Justice must be blind. Consequences must be consistent. Otherwise, resentment breeds. Now, let's anchor this in real life. A basketball coach benches his star player for skipping practice. The team wins less that week. But they win more in the long run because the culture is protected. A CEO fires a top salesman who manipulates numbers. Short-term revenue drops. Long-term integrity rises. A parent grounds a teenager for lying. The weekend is ruined. But the lesson is burned into memory. Lying has cost. This is what most managers fear. They fear the short-term pain of enforcing consequence. They fear conflict, discomfort, disruption. So they avoid it. They excuse it. They delay it. And in doing so, they trade short-term comfort for long-term decay. The truth. A weak leader tolerates. A strong leader enforces. And here's the paradox. The more consistent you are with consequences early, the less you will need them later. Because when employees see that excuses fail, laziness costs, and mediocrity is punished, they adapt. They align. But when employees see you bend, they push further. When they see you tolerate, they test more. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In the same way, waste no more time arguing what a good standard should be. Enforce one. Consequences are not cruelty. Consequences are clarity. They are not punishment. They are protection. Protection of your time. Protection of your authority. Protection of your team. And when your team knows that your words are backed by action, that your standards are not negotiable, that your consequences are real suddenly, leadership becomes effortless. Because you no longer chase respect. Respect chases you. Authority is not a job title. Authority is not a paycheck. Authority is not a corner office. Authority is a force. A presence. A power that either lives within you or dies within you. History and philosophy have always wrestled with this question. What gives one person the right to lead another? The answers are brutal, but they are true. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that life itself is will to power. Every organism strives not just to survive, but to dominate, to expand, to control. When you manage a team, you are not managing people in some neutral space. You are in the battlefield of wills. Their will against your will. Their excuses against your standards. Their laziness against your discipline. If your will is weaker, they win. If your will is stronger, they submit. Simple. Unforgiving. True. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all taught that true power lies in control of the self. You cannot control traffic. You cannot control weather. You cannot control the excuses of an employee. But you can control your response. You can control whether you are swayed by pity. You can control whether you are provoked by anger. You can control whether you stand firm or collapse. The Stoics remind us, a leader without self-mastery is no leader at all. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu wrote, If the troops are punished before their loyalty is secured, they will be disobedient. If not punished after their loyalty is secured, they will be useless. What does this mean for you? Timing. If you enforce boundaries without first showing fairness, you breed rebellion. If you show fairness but fail to enforce boundaries, you breed weakness. Authority is the balance firmness rooted in justice. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the dark parts of ourselves we deny. For a leader, the shadow is often the fear of conflict, the fear of rejection, the fear of being disliked. And so, many managers tolerate laziness not because they don't see it, but because they don't want to face their own shadow. But until you confront this fear, until you embrace your shadow, you will never enforce authority. Look at the military. Authority there is not a debate. It is absolute. Why? Because without it, the group dies. Discipline is survival. Look at sports. The greatest coaches are not the most popular. They are the most respected. Why? Because they demand everything, tolerate nothing, and enforce consequences consistently. Look at nations. The strongest societies are not the ones with the most freedoms. They are the ones where freedom is balanced with order, where law is not suggestion, but command. The philosophy of authority is this: without strength, there is no respect. Without respect, there is no order. Without order, there is no survival. And yet, authority must never slip into tyranny. Tyranny breeds rebellion. Authority breeds alignment. The difference. Justice. The tyrant rules for self. The leader rules for the standard. So when you face the unruly employee, understand you are not just managing performance. You are stepping into a timeless philosophical struggle. Weakness versus strength. Illusion versus truth. Chaos versus order. This is not just about work. It is about human nature itself. Authority is not given. Authority is taken. Authority is lived. And only the leader who understands this, who blends Nietzsche's will, stoic discipline, Sun Tzu's timing, and Jung's shadow, can truly control a team. The unruly employee is not just a problem. They are a fork in the road. One path leads to decay. The other leads to transformation. The choice is yours. Not every lazy worker must be discarded. Not every excuse maker must be banished. Some can be reshaped. Some can be but the key is power. Without power, transformation is impossible. So, how do you transform them? Step 1. Confront the mask. Do not dance around laziness. Do not sugarcoat excuses. Name them directly. Your performance is unacceptable. Your excuses do not change the fact that you failed. This is the first strike, ripping off the mask. Because until the mask is gone, there can be no change. Step 2. Demand ownership. Do not let them shift blame to traffic, to systems, to life. Drag them back to accountability. What could you have done differently? What will you do next time to ensure this doesn't happen again? Force them to see that control is in their hands. Force them to own their results. Step 3. Link consequence to action. Words mean nothing without cost. Tie their laziness to visible consequences. Missed bonuses, reduced opportunities, disciplinary action. Let them feel the weight of their choices. Not abstractly, concretely. Step 4. Offer the ladder. But here is where transformation begins. After consequence comes opportunity. Show them the ladder out of the pit. Here is what improvement looks like. Here is the standard. Here is how you can rise. Demand much, but show the path. Step 5. Monitor relentlessly. The unruly employee thrives in neglect. They know most managers forget. So don't forget. Watch. Track. Measure. Check progress weekly, daily if needed. When they know your eyes never leave them, laziness has no air to breathe. And here's the truth. Some will rise. Some will surprise you. Some who resisted the hardest will become your strongest assets, because once they realize excuses no longer work, they finally channel their energy into action. But others will not. Others will dig deeper into laziness. They will cling harder to excuses. They will resist until the end. And this is where power takes its sharpest form. You must cut them out. Not with anger. Not with spite. With clarity. With firmness. Because you cannot save those who refuse to rise. You cannot transform poison into medicine. Look at sports again. Some athletes, when disciplined, rise to greatness. Others collapse under pressure. The coach's job is not to save everyone. The coach's job is to build the team that wins. Look at the military. Some recruits break and rebuild into soldiers. Others break and shatter into pieces. The commander's duty is not to carry the broken. It is to forge the strong. Look at relationships. Some partners, when confronted, grow. Others retreat into denial. The healthy choice is not to cling to the one who refuses growth. It is to walk away. This is the same in leadership. Transformation is possible, but only for the willing. And here is the paradox. The act of cutting out the truly lazy one is itself transformation. Not for them, for the team. When the others see that mediocrity is not tolerated, their respect for you grows. Their trust in the system grows. Their own performance sharpens. Sometimes the greatest gift you give a team is subtraction. Transformation through power means this. You either transform the lazy one into an asset, or you transform the team by removing them. Either way, transformation happens. Either way, you win. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a desk. Leadership is not a paycheck. Leadership is war. Every day. Against excuses. Against laziness. Against weakness, both in others and in yourself. The unruly employee is not your greatest enemy. Your greatest enemy is the part of you that tolerates them. The part of you that avoids conflict. The part of you that hopes things will fix themselves. The part of you that chooses comfort over confrontation. That is the real danger. Because excuses will always exist. Laziness will always exist. Weakness will always exist. But whether they survive in your team depends on you. You set the tone. You draw the line. You decide whether mediocrity is tolerated or destroyed. Think of the great leaders. Alexander the Great, who demanded excellence from his soldiers, even when marching through deserts. Vince Lombardi, who told his players, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled not by indulgence, but by discipline. Writing in his meditations, waste no more time arguing about B1. What do they all teach us? That leadership is not words. Leadership is action. Leadership is example. Leadership is the courage to say no to excuses, to enforce consequences, to protect the standard even when it hurts. And here's the brutal truth. If you do not lead with strength, you will be led by weakness. If you do not control your team will control you. If you do not kill excuses, excuses will kill you. So, this is the call. Stop tolerating. Stop hoping. Stop waiting. Confront the lazy one. Rip off the mask. Demand ownership. Enforce consequence. Offer the ladder. Cut out the poison when you must. But, above all, lead yourself first. Because you cannot demand discipline from others if you are ruled by your own excuses. You cannot demand effort if you live in apathy. You cannot demand accountability if you dodge responsibility. The unruly employee is not just their test. They are your test. And the question is simple. Will you rise as a leader, or will you sink as a bystander? The world does not need more managers. The world does not need more bosses. The world needs leaders. Leaders who are not afraid of silence. Leaders who carry boundaries like shields. Leaders who enforce justice without hesitation. Leaders who burn excuses to ash. Look around you. Your team, your company, your family, your life. They are all waiting for you to step into that role. Not tomorrow. Not someday now. Because leadership is not theory. Leadership is not philosophy. Leadership is a call to arms. and the call is ringing. The only question left is, will you answer it? Excuses are cheap. Laziness is contagious. Weakness spreads like fire. But so does strength. So does discipline. So does leadership. The unruly employee was never just their test. They were your test. And now you know the truth. Authority is not given. It is seized. It is lived. It is enforced. You can walk back into your workplace tomorrow as the same manager who tolerates, or as the leader who transforms. The difference is a single decision. Will you let excuses define your team? Or will you draw the line that changes everything? The world doesn't need more bosses. The world needs leaders. Be one. Starting now.